Welcome to the Purple Positivity Podcast for June the 15th, 2018. I am your host, the amazingly adorable and newly medicated Rebecca Thistle, podcasting to you live-ish from my new used computer desk in my bedroom, in my apartment, which I call Jeffrey Thistlework. Yes. My coworker Rita and her husband Tony are cleaning out a storage unit, and they were looking through all this stuff that they have in there, and they were like, we don't need this. So yesterday they gifted me a couch with a hide-a-bed, yay, 2 nightstand end table type things, and this computer desk. And so I said, oh, now I can start podcasting from the computer desk. So this is now my official podcast station, I guess. I was sitting in a corner in my room because I don't have any other furniture in here, so optimal, right? But I don't know. Part of me wants to stick it in my closet, actually, because it might make it sound like this show sound better. I don't know. So, yay. Thank you, Rita and Tony. I love you. Mwah! But yes, I'm newly medicated. I finally found a psychiatrist who will listen to me, and so he, I went in and he said, why are you here? And I said, because I need to be on Adderall. Give me Adderall. I know that sounds drug-seeky, but I assure you, I know this works, and I need somebody to listen to me. And I think I really impressed him, because I went in there and I was very honest about what my struggles are and what they have been, and what I know about myself. I was also humble enough to go, you know what, I got it, I'm not an expert, you're the expert. But I told him, I understand how my brain works, and maybe not, perfectly, because we're still learning a lot about the human brain in general, scientifically speaking. But, yeah, so he gave me a prescription for Adderall, and I am currently medicated and feeling pretty damn good, actually. So yes, I recently discovered when I say recently, as in this morning, I discovered a podcast called Lend Me Your Ears, and it's Shakespeare and politics. And I listened to this really great, it was a professional fucking podcast, not like this, But it was with audio editing and voice actors and guest speaker expert people that know things about stuff and as well as things. And I was just like, wow, I probably shouldn't listen to this because this makes me feel really bad about my podcast. But on the other hand, I'm not trying to do this kind of podcast. Anyways, so the point that I'm trying to make with the fact that I discovered this and why I'm going to talk about what I'm going to talk about is it got me thinking about Shakespeare. Oh my gosh, a podcast about Shakespeare got you thinking about Shakespeare? How weird, Becca. But specifically, it got me thinking about sonnets, because that's my favorite. That's my favorite aspect of Shakespeare, is the sonnets, because I love the sonnet form, the poetic form of a sonnet. It's like a lyrical snapshot of a moment in time. Just verbal snapshot. It's just 14 lines, because you experience on it. You have the first 8 lines sort of set up what the fuck is going on, and then the last 4, or then the next 4 lines, you have this sort of shift that either puts it in a different perspective or basically turns it around. And then you have the couplet that sort of sums it all up. And so, but whenever I think about Shakespearean sonnets, I think about my favorite sonnet, which I will recite now. It is 141, and if I have any secret admirers out there who want to impress me by memorizing Shakespeare, this is the one to go learn. This one or Sonnet 130, but preferably this one. Do not, I repeat, do not go out there and learn 18. I'm just saying that will just annoy the fuck out of me. Like, I will appreciate the sentiment and I will pat you on the back and I will say hooray, but if you really want to impress me, 141 or 130. Okay, so 141 says, in faith I do not love thee with mine eyes, for they in thee 1,000 errors note, but 'tis my heart that loves what they despise, who, in despite of you, is pleased to dote. Nor are mine ears with thy tongue's tune delighted, nor tender feelings to base touches prone, nor taste nor smell desire to be invited to any sensual feast with thee alone. But my 5 wits nor my 5 senses can dissuade my foolish heart from serving thee, and leaves unswayed the likeness of a man, thy proud heart's slave and vassal wretch to be. Only my losses do I count my gains, for she that makes me sin awards me pain. Yes. I took a Shakespeare class when I was still at McMurray University. And one of the requirements for aforementioned class was you had to learn 14 lines of Shakespeare. You had to memorize it and you had to recite it to the teacher or to the class. I always just did it privately to the teacher, even though that was way more awkward. But he made me do that. He made me do that in Shakespeare class, which, by the way, I took twice. Not because I failed it, but because I could. And then once for English Renaissance, which was basically everything that was going on at the same time as Shakespeare, but we're not going to talk about Shakespeare, but we kind of are. So I had to do 3 different recitations over the course of my short time at McMurray. And 2 of those 3 times I recited 141. And the first time I did, this teacher looked at me and he goes, "Why'd you choose that one?" I said, "Well, because it was in 10 Things I Hate About You, and that's one of my favorite movies of all time." And he kind of rolled his eyes because, that's not a good adaptation of Taming of the Shrew. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I'll be the first one to tell you. But it's still a really good movie, Don't look at it as an adaptation. Look at it as inspired by... inspired by Taming of the Shrew, not an actual adaptation. Anyways, but he said, "Well, that's really interesting that was the reason why, because I would have thought that it was because of the whole I don't love you with my eyes thing, and you being blind." And I was like, yeah, that kind of plays into it a little bit, but it's mostly because I really liked the movie and I really liked that quatrain. Because that's all you hear in the movie is that first quatrain. But, I can't deny that my disability has really changed the way that I view people in general, but especially romantic relationships. Because, I can still see well enough to go, "Ooh, you're a good-looking young man," Like, there's some really cute car hops that work at Sonnet over close to where I work. So, especially when it's like a young man brings out my drink, because I get a drink every day that I work. Because I'm a Dr. Pepper addict. They're really good looking young men, and I just, and they walk off, and I can't help it. I go, yum. you know, I, but here's the thing is, yeah, I can see well enough to say you're physically attractive. I have pictures of all caps someone on my iPad and on my phone, and and I look at them and I go, yummy. And I'm physically attracted to the person that I see in these pictures. On a superficial level, I'm physically attracted to him. But honestly, what I find more attractive is personality. And I mean, I know that's, when you look collectively at the Dark Lady cycle of Shakespeare sonnets, from which 141 hails, he's not necessarily saying that she's a good person, because this is, after all, the Dark Lady. And she's kind of a manipulative bitch. Because if you read them collectively, like, there's sort of a storyline that goes on, and it's shrouded in mystery as to whether Shakespeare actually intended it this way, because his sonnets were published more likely than not were published with his knowledge, but his consent was begrudging at best, because William Shakespeare was not afraid to take legal action when he felt like his work had been wronged in some way, had been infringed upon in some way. He was not afraid to take legal action when he felt like he had been wronged. And so when these sonnets were published in 1616, I think. I don't know. Maybe a Shakespearean expert actually listens to this and will correct me. Send me an angry tweet saying, at PurpleBecca923, what the hell are you talking about? You don't know anything about Shakespeare. You're right, I don't. Except I kind of do. I'm just not an expert. Anyways, point being is that these were published before Shakespeare died, and he died in 1623. So these were at least published 7 years before then, and had he felt like he'd been slighted in any way, he would have taken legal action, and he didn't. But there's not much evidence to suggest that he was too keen on the publication per se. So I think it was just sort of like, all right, fine, if you want to fucking publish them, I don't care. So I think there's a certain apathy with it. But anyways, going back to the Dark Lady cycle of these sonnets, which goes from 127, I think, to the very end of 154. But there's a storyline that goes on. She's kind of a manipulative bitch. She is not classically attractive. She's a little bit abusive. And so there's no indication that Shakespeare was in love, if this was a real person, that he was in love with her personality. But he